Good afternoon, people. Good afternoon. This is Spirit Journey. Yes, today is Saturday. Saturday, March 1st. Wow, 2025. This year is going real fast, real fast. Yeah, I saw over YouTube, there was some heated discussion with the president of Ukraine named Zelensky and Trump and Vance in the Oval Office. And I was curious about it. And again, I really not into um, when different dignitaries, heads of state come and uh, media, stuff like that. I really don't follow it. But I was really curious because they said something was very heated and someone allegedly getting thrown out. And I wanted to just investigate that. So I found a video, and they aired, I think it was 42 minutes that there were, uh, the Ukraine president was in the, with media. There was media also there in the Oval Office. And it's all about trying to bring about peace between Ukraine and Russia. And like first maybe 20 minutes or so, I was wondering, they said that something was getting very heated. And everything seemed, in my opinion, again, in my opinion, it seemed pretty straightforward. Um, People exchanged their thoughts, um, relayed information, what was going on. And I said, let me fast forward this. And yes, yes, I did find the spot where it got a little hairy. Um, I listened to it, the initial time, and then I said, well, let me go back to the point where I started from because I want to get the context. Because see, if I just jump forward to the part where things got a little heated, um, we have to find out what preceded it. So basically, the leaders are talking about uh, Ukraine and about bringing peace to that region. So, what happened? How did this kind of spark? I mean, it wasn't the initial verbiage was forcefully, but in my opinion, again, it's my opinion, I didn't think it was. Hmm. They're men and they're discussing their concerns, and that's how I took it. But there was intensity that I haven't seen before between world leaders. Okay, so we're seeing things as it occurs, when it occurs. Um, but just because someone may speak with it doesn't mean that they're being disrespectful or rude. Okay, we're dealing with people. How it just went out, my television just went out. Yeah, this happens a lot here in Rwanda. Power gets turned off several times a day, sometimes like up to 10 times a day. And luckily I'm home because if I'm not home to turn back on the switch, I forget what you call it, the fuse box, my food could get spoiled in this hot weather. Yes, I was just turning the fuse box back on. Oh, wow. Yeah, sorry about that. Uh, yeah, I want to try to understand more about what's going on in the world, what's happening around me. I always avoided it growing up, but now I feel like because now we have you can see things as it happens. Um, so I'm grateful about that. So again, get back with the meeting that I think it was yesterday. Um, what are my thoughts? Okay, what was said? And again, I was surprised at the response. See, I listened to about 3 times, and again, had the context of it. So towards the end of the meeting, Vice President Vance, uh, I thought he was very respectful, and he used the term diplomacy. It was a fluffy statement about that the he speak on behalf of Trump eh, that what Trump is trying to do is bring about diplomacy and that the conflict, that the war that's happening between Ukraine and Russia be ironed out. They wanted to stop, and it could only be done through diplomacy. The past, um, that diplomacy was not, power went out again. Oh well. Um, um, there was supposed to be a ceasefire agreement, and other nations were part of that agreement. But in 2019, according to President Zelensky, it was um, not adhered to. And and during this time, where was diplomacy? And I thought that was a fair statement. I didn't think it was rude. And again, he was invited to the U.S. And this whole thing, why he's President Zelensky's in the Oval Office, was to try to come to some type of agreement to stop the war. Both sides are in trouble. Both sides have a lot of casualties, a lot of death, and how do you correct something like that? Well, you have to have a discussion. So, again, Ukraine is on the other side of the ocean, and if some agreement was made in 2014 and it be broken, and I felt like Zelensky was saying, that talk is cheap. I mean, I'm throwing that in. But diplomacy had been done. But what is diplomacy when someone cannot prevent something from happening? Um, so I think, he's afraid. President Zelensky is afraid for his nation. And if an agreement was made and someone else in the audience, one of the reporters said, "Hey, what if you come to a ceasefire agreement with Russia, and if Russia breaks it?" And I was surprised when President Trump had responded, "Well, what if anything could happen? Why talk about something that didn't happen yet?" And I was surprised. But these are very good questions to ask. There is nothing wrong to in a meeting. Again, it's being publicized live. You have reporters from all over the world that are there, that are present. You have people that have interests with both countries, Russia and plus America. I think it's fair game if you're invited to a country that to state your concerns. So I was surprised that, well, I was initially surprised when President Zelensky had responded to Vice President Vance. Um, how could you call that diplomacy? So I was shocked at that, like, because it came across in part like a challenge. It was a challenge, but he said it respectfully. And through his eyes, I would imagine through President Zelensky's eyes, it's a small nation. I found out the Ukraine has about 38 million people, and Russia has about 180 million people. That is a big difference, people. That is a very big difference. And plus, they border each other. Plus, Ukraine was a part of the USSR. And so there are ties, historical ties between the two nations. But the US is on the other side of the ocean. And that's also what President Zelensky had said. Um, so again, initially I was surprised. Like I was saying, maybe I didn't hear something correctly. Why would he respond to Vice President Vance's statement that it's all about diplomacy? It was a nice fluffy statement. It sounded like it was to promote feelings of peace. And so I was surprised initially. So I had to reverse the video, and then I put it on closed caption so I can read it and hear it at the same time. And it was difficult because at one point, uh, the, they were talking over each other. It got really, it was very, they were talking over each other and it was kind of heated. I think the discussion, that intense discussion, maybe was for maybe 6 minutes. It was intense. But I said, okay, what's really happening? And and is it that, is President Zelensky being ungrateful? Um, Vice President Vance had responded at one point to the Ukrainian president, you're being disrespectful to America and you're not grateful. And it's at that point, uh, President Trump had jumped in verbally and said, you know, something, that you are being disrespectful to the Ukrainian president. But I said, okay, how is he? On the surface, it might seem like, okay, it was a challenge. But again, this is a meeting of two leaders, and he's invited for a discussion. And I think you have to really share all sides to the story. And some of those sides to a story may not sound pleasant. But I understand you're being hosted by the US, Ukraine. But again, you don't want to upset your host. But I thought it was fair because they were fighting. Ukraine had been fighting for, what's that, about um, for some years now, and many casualties. So he's speaking through, I felt, frustration. No one wants to fight. No one wants to be in war. And again, I listened to the whole meeting. There was about 42 minutes. Um, I didn't hear him say that he didn't want to do a ceasefire. Trump was saying, oh, you don't want to do a ceasefire. But he didn't say that. At least I didn't hear him say that. And I, you know, played it back. I just think what the Ukraine is saying is, we live over there in Europe, and they live next to a big nation, and they're being attacked. Why they're being attacked, to my understanding, is something about that Ukraine was asked to be a part of this organization, Western organization that's in conflict to Russia's interests. I think that's what happened. And so Russia feels that they have to stop it because it's like with the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 1960s. Now, Cuba was a sovereign nation, but it had an allegiance to another country slash Russia. Now, they have a right as a nation to have alliances, but because it was too close to the border, too close for comfort, and rightly so. And so what happened? There was a conflict that happened that could have really escalated. Things are different when it's knocking at your front door versus something being having a big ocean in between. And in this conflict with the Oval Office in D.C., Zelensky had also mentioned, "Hey, look, you have a big ocean between you, and so it's not going to whatever's going to happen, it's not going to affect you the same way." And President Trump didn't like that and reprimanded Ukraine, saying, "Don't dictate to us what you think was going to happen to us. You're in no position to judge." But I asked myself, yes, hello, viewer, but I asked myself, he's not, I didn't feel Ukraine was wishing harm for America, but stating the obvious. Because someone is being honest about something or insightful about something doesn't mean that they're trying to be disrespectful. There is a difference between someone who's, hey, these are things that you have to be aware of, versus I hope that you don't have things knocking on your door. I didn't take that as such. Um, his tone of voice was always even, but um, he said what he said with confidence. And again, this also probably could be a language barrier too. English is not his first language. So sometimes when people are expressing certain things, it may come across a little bit harsh, might seem a little or convey a message because of the him translating into English uh, what he wants to say. Um, yeah, there's a difference between someone being disrespectful. I didn't think he was being disrespectful. Um, and he did listen to Trump at one point. Um, and then he asked, "Oh, well, I want to say something." Trump says, "You said enough. And it's my time to talk." Well, see, that's not diplomacy either. I love Trump. I voted for Trump, um, but I felt I think what was happening there at some point, egos. You have adult men. You have two leaders, the US versus Ukraine. Again, the war is not between the US and Ukraine, but they are to discuss how to stop the conflict, the war the casualties that are happening between Russia and Ukraine. Um, some things really have to be if he's here, if Ukraine is visiting, isn't it better that whatever sentiment that they really have, that it be said and be said openly and respectfully? And I felt that he did. You don't have to always like what someone is saying. I didn't feel there was of disrespect. But I think Vance took the opportunity. Vance is very intelligent, Vice President Vance. He has a very, very sharp mind, very, very intellectual, a lot of knowledge. And he is a lawyer by trade. He was a lawyer. Um, but I think he used like reverse psychology. He knew by saying, "You're being disrespectful," he knew Trump would jump on that. and it worked. Was Ukraine trying to be disrespectful or speaking through their experience? One thing, the U.S. has not had a direct war with a foreign nation since um, since the Civil War. I mean, the Civil War, North against the South and South against the North, um, both sides had massive casualties. But outside of that, has the U.S. been attacked by foreign agencies? I mean, direct war? No. And part of that reason is there is a big ocean on both sides, on the west and on the east, right? And so it's easy for the US to say certain things because it's far away from a lot of that conflict, slash Europe, slash the Middle East. It's a big, you can say a lot of things when you have a big gap. You can say a lot of things when you're on social media, but then there's a point when the distance, whether it's an ocean or someone's device, it can come knocking on your door. And I think that's all what was trying to be said by Ukraine. Ukraine has gotten a lot of casualties over a period of years. And the word diplomacy, what does that mean? Again, it's not just, again, I'm not trying to justify. I mean, I'm talking, it's about perspective. Through his perspective, he's over in Europe. The boogie, to him, maybe the boogeyman is right at their door. There's no ocean that's separating them. And again, Russia had violated the agreement. So how could you say diplomacy and whatever diplomacy that did exist, it could be violated? So where does that leave Ukraine? Again, feeling vulnerable and mass casualties. So yeah, I thought I understood, and in the context, because the whole meeting, they the people spoke. Everybody seemed very respectful, but at that point, the word diplomacy made the president of Ukraine uncomfortable. And but what assurance? He has a point to say, okay, diplomacy. How how is he going to respond? What is he to do if the agreement, the ceasefire agreement, ends? It stops. You can set anything up, but things could be violated. And I think that's a valid question to ask. You can present things using all diplomacy, but in the end, their nation is being um, assaulted. It's also to note President Trump had also uh, reminded Ukraine that under Trump's administration in the past, that he had gotten very good defense, military defense. They were given uh, weapons for defending themselves from Russia. But Biden and Obama gave them inferior weaponry. So um, it, 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 it made Trump felt that he was being disrespected, threat, not being appreciated. He, I could understand that he would feel unappreciated, but if President Trump really felt that Ukraine was being very disrespectful, ungrateful, that's the term, ungrateful. He would have said it when he said this statement about diplomacy. But I think President Trump was trying to defend Vice President Vance, his statement. He was backing his VP, and I could respect that. But he didn't need to really say anything at that point. The Trump and the Ukraine were doing the dialogue, and I think Vice President Vance was saying things for a brownie point. He wanted to feel a part of the dialogue, and he's said initially, I thought, a very innocent statement, but I guess we'll have to be careful what we say, um, because of perspective. Someone has been fighting for a long time, and they're tired of things that sound good. There are things in government that sound good in public, but he has a small nation. He really doesn't have much of a choice because Ukraine is part of a Western organization, and so they get finance, and they were receiving um, military aid, but it doesn't stop that right next door that they border with Russia, a massive, a very big country. Um, do I think he's really being ungrateful? I think war will make people act many different ways. War is ugly. And when your people are dying and you're being told one thing and then something else is happening, the U.S., I don't think the U.S. should be sending any aid. We need to defend ourselves. We need to feed our own nation. And the U.S. is sending out all this money to people who really don't appreciate us. And why support someone if if they had a chance to destroy your country, they would. That is my feeling. So yeah, be careful who you finance, who you give weapons to, because they could in the future use it against you. I think the U.S. should stay out of certain politics, but it is what it is. And yeah, when we have a big ocean on both sides to the east and west of us. Um, Soon these borders, the waters won't even matter anymore. People are using different types of warfare now. Public opinion on social media. Someone could be deemed a villain, but maybe they were the one that's violated, and vice versa. Uh, Also, I thought was interesting, um, President Zelensky saying about the ocean that is protecting the U.S., that things could happen. I don't think it's a threat, but for us, for Americans, to really open our eyes. There is an ocean, but things are shrinking and things could knock on your door. And so, what I was thinking, and he spoke the truth. I felt President Zelensky was stating something that was very feasible, and I actually think that he's correct. See, there are different types of warfare again, and I think what's going to happen, the U.S. is invaded, but it's quiet, and it's always quiet before things get the serpent lashes out. I believe they are hidden cells in America. The reason why the borders were left open in the Biden administration is because Biden wanted to destroy America, the infrastructure of it, and let a lot of questionable people in to topple our economy and hidden cells, mercenaries, people who are hired from other parts of the world. And then one day, I gather they're going to be activated. I was told also that you have China. See, we're preoccupied with Russia, and I don't know why. Russia is not communist, but we have China, and they are more of a threat. But because quiet, you think because someone is quiet that they're a friend, and I'm saying no. It was said during the Biden administration, it was discovered that thousands of people, illegals from China, infiltrated our borders. And you have people from that nation, from China, that are buying up land and land near military bases, uh, interests of America. Why is that? Well, I think they're trying to make the boogeyman us focus on Ukraine and Russia when we should really be focusing on what China is doing. These distractions, the real threat. And again, I think Ukraine hit it on the head, but we didn't want to hear it. Trump didn't want to hear it. Vance didn't want to hear it. And he was not being rude, but accurate about when you have a large buffer zone, like a big ocean. So if someone is going to attack you across the ocean, you have this radar, right? You can see when they're coming. And so you have a lot of time to prepare for impact, to protect yourself, right? But if someone's border is right there, you're going to be acting differently. And that's all that I'm saying. There's a difference between when you're a nation that you're in conflict with, when there's it's right next door versus a big gap. And when you're told and you're given a promise through diplomacy, and then that diplomacy is broken, and you have casualties. And so that's all that I saw it as. I think it was very eye-opening and almost prophetic from the president of Ukraine. Again, I'm not pro-Ukraine, anything like that, but I'm just listening to the dialogue that was discussed between uh, Trump, Vance, and Zelensky. You have three men, uh, very assertive personalities, and uh, the U.S. has never had this type of casualties from a foreign nation. Not like that. Not since the Civil War. We have to be very careful. Americans have to be very careful. I do believe that there are people who are infiltrated in the nation and they're waiting to strike. They're here, they're quiet, and they're going to be activated. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I would never want to be in a situation like that. Oh, America is so blessed. The U.S. is a blessed nation. Um, it has so much, but there's it's going through changes, right? I'm afraid for what's happening in America. I love America. I love America, but I don't love the corruption. I don't like what happened in the past administration, under the Biden administration. I think the country is in danger. I think this is still in danger. And again, a big ocean changes perspective versus someone who uh, there's no option of separation and they're getting clobbered. It's not that they're being ungrateful. Uh, yeah, it was an interesting dialogue. So those are my thoughts, people. Those are my thoughts regarding the Ukrainian president, Vice President Vance, and President Trump. The meeting they had, I guess, yesterday at some time. Yeah, today is March 1st, 2025. And yes, we all want peace. We all want, no one wants their children have to go out and wonder whether there's a mine under their feet when they go to school, going shopping. Um, America is really blessed that we haven't had that type of conflict. But I feel in my heart they want to try to topple over America, the hidden hand, um, and I really wish for its safety. Yeah, I left the country, but I every day I watch American videos. I haven't changed. I just changed my location. Things are happening all over the world. Every place affects everywhere else, despite the fact I'm not physically there. What happens in America will affect every nation on this planet. So I'm concerned. Yeah, I wish we stop the violence, stop insanity. Yeah, I want to wake up in a beautiful place. I think if people just, give people a plot of land, have them farm it, get their own food, and, I think we'll be happier, you know. Uh, People have too much free time in their hand and they're bored. But when you have to work for your food, you know, uh, things are different. Things are different. Okay. That's all I have to say. So let me know what you think. Again, I love my country. I love America. Uh, and I just see different perspectives of someone who is under fire versus who's never been under fire. And that's where I think the person's sentiment is coming from. Uh, and Vance used the opportunity to say, "Hey, just disrespecting us." It's a I think it's a cheap shot, but it worked for him. But again, in the long run, the future will express itself, and I really hope that the U.S. be protected. Yeah. So thank you again, people. Thank you for listening. You can share your comment below, respectfully. Yeah, I want peace for everybody. Yeah, peace through love. Yeah, thank you again, and have a great weekend. And yes, happy March. It's March 1st. Thank you again. Bye bye.